Growing up, my folks were always really optimistic, like incredibly encouraging. My dad, he would just say like, Adam, if you work hard and you don't stop, you can do anything. I'd be like, Dad, I want to be a musician. He'd be like, you can do it. I'd be like, Dad, I want to be a preacher. He was like, you can do it. I was like, Dad, I want to be a professional baseball player. And he was like, well, maybe not anything. I said, Dad, I want to be a writer and a performer. He was like, yeah, you could actually do that. One day I was getting ready for school and Dad said, hey, how about today, instead of school, we go see a movie? And I wasn't really picking up on what he was like trying to do. And so I was like, well, I got to go to school. He goes, how about today we go to a movie? And I was like, I got to go to school. But we did see a movie. We saw Fievel Goes West. And it was like, you know it. It was just like my dad's way of hanging out with me, but also like encouraging me in my gifts, that sort of thing. And you better believe the next day at school, I told everybody about it. I stood up in the middle of the class. I was like, can I have everyone's attention, please? Yesterday I was not here. You would have assumed I was sick. But nothing could be further from the truth. I was at the movies with my father. I saw Fievel Goes West. If anyone's interested in the plot, I know it. When I was 9, I came up with an original idea for a television show, and I wrote a letter. Dear ABC Television, here's my idea. It's about 1 or 2 people. They're journalists or detectives. And every episode, something happens. So give me a call. 2 weeks later, I get my letter back and it's stamped unsolicited and unread. But I was so convinced ABC liked my pitch that every time I saw a cop show on TV, I was like, that was my idea! I'm not saying I'm responsible for the whole CSI franchise, but the similarities are uncanny. To really understand what it was like for me growing up, it's important that you know I am originally from Louisiana. That's an appropriate response. One time this girl in the audience, she goes, woo! And I was like, oh, are you from Louisiana? And she goes, nah, Missouri. I was like, that's a different state. She goes, I've just always been jealous of people who are from Louisiana. How crappy is Missouri? Most people are like, you're from Louisiana? Do you also make duck calls for a living? Which is appropriate. My first job in high school, our boss would pick us up and it would take an hour to get to the job site. He would blow duck calls the entire way there and make us guess what kind of duck it was. As if that wasn't bad enough, he only knew 2 kinds of ducks. We moved to Louisiana because my dad became the pastor of a church of 11 people. Not the thriving congregation one would expect. Within a year, 10 of the people left. I'm no mathematician, but that seems like about a 90% failure rate. The lone lady who was left was a sweet old lady named Miss Utopia. Miss Utopia was the kindest, sweetest, most generous old lady I'd ever met. When I was a kid, I used to go to church and I would dress up like a cowboy. Miss Utopia would say, hey, Adam. I'd be like, there's no Adam here. I'm Cowboy Clem. I was convinced that I had her fooled because that Christmas, she bought me 2 presents, 1 for Adam and 1 for Clem. And I was like, you stupid idiot. I got you totally fooled. By the time I got to high school, I realized how country Louisiana was. There were a lot of guys who drove tractors to school. I don't know if you could tell, I'm not putting off strong John Deere vibes. Guys in Louisiana would take one look at my hair and be like, are you one of them lesbians? I grew up so conservative, I was just like, maybe. I do like girls. To really help you understand how country Louisiana is, one day I get to PE, and the coach says, "This semester, we're going to teach y'all how to square dance." And then he looked at me, and he goes, "Now some of y'all are going to try to get out of it." And I was like, "Yep." He goes, "But you can only be excused for religious purposes." And I was like, "Challenge accepted." So I go home and tell my dad, I'm like, "I need you to write me a note that says Adam doesn't square dance." And he did it. Actually, he wrote a note that said Adam cannot square dance, which was a little fatherly jab at my lack of athleticism. What do I care? My dad was a preacher. So when I turned in that note, it wasn't from my father. It was from Father Bush. So I say to the coach, "What do you want me to do instead of square dancing?" And he looked at me very confidently and said, "Write a report on how square dancing originated in Louisiana." It didn't. Louisiana wonders why they're ranked 53rd in education. If you didn't get that joke, there are only 50 states. That's what. Just want to be clear about that. So while everybody out there is boot scooting it to school and I'm busy trying to write the next great television drama, I was feeling real isolated, right? Just old Clem by himself. Eventually I met these guys who were more my speed. Like, they listened to music that wasn't Alan Jackson and wore t-shirts that didn't say "These colors don't run." And like, we were super tight all through high school, and we had nicknames for each other. Like, I have abnormally large fingers. Like, look at your fingers right now. The width of the base is one width, and they get progressively smaller as they go up. Also, this scene of you guys looking at your hands is amazing. Your normal fingers are one width at the bottom and progressively get smaller. But for me, God was like, let's just give Adam 10 hot dogs to grab stuff with. So you take that, and you add the gap in my teeth I had at the time. My friends affectionately nicknamed me Gappy McBighands. One night we're all staying the night together, and I was like, "I need a pillow." And they were like, "Just rest your head on your massive pillowy fingers." You know, stuff friends say. Last summer, my buddy Rob, who was part of the group, his father passed away. And I was out of town, and so I caught a red eye back to Louisiana, and I pulled up to the funeral like just as it was starting. And as I'm walking up, I see that all 6 of the original gang are there. I didn't realize that was going to happen. It's the first time we had been together in the same place in like 20 years. And so I step up to the funeral, and Rob is leading everyone in Amazing Grace. And it's such a wonderful moment that I take my phone out to video it. My buddy Wade is standing right here, and before he says hi or gives me a hug or acknowledges my presence, he just leans over and whispers, "Must be pretty hard using that phone with those gigantic fingers."